In this example, we're going to show how to implement fingerprint security into our Ionic 3 application. We're going to take this concept a step further, and we're actually going to present a lock screen. And this is really important just to understand conceptually. When you suspend your app and it goes to the background, on iOS will take a screenshot of that and store it in local storage. So if an attacker got access to that screen, that last screen, and you were in an app, for example, and entering your credit card information, he or she would be able to see your credit card info, and then do whatever they'd want to do with it. So the whole idea is we want to detect when the app goes to the background, and we'll show a splash screen as well as a lock screen, and then that way, even if somebody did get access to that last screenshot that was saved, they would not be able to do anything because it would just be a splash screen. And we're gonna also add the lock screen just for an extra layer of security, and we're going to apply that across the entire app. So over here we have a new project that's been generated. It's just a blank project, not a tab or a side menu. So I've just pulled over this the Ionic native page, and you can see here that this is the plugin that we're going to use. The installation steps are really simple, just these two commands that we see as usual, and the implementation is not that bad. We're not going to focus too much on the nuts and bolts of this thing, because really the purpose of this is showing how to not just use the fingerprint authentication, but really interact with the pause and resume events that Cordova provides us, so that we can show a fingerprint in a lock screen. The documentation here is pretty good, and there's tons of customization options that you can do depending on your specific platform and what you're looking to do. So going back, we're gonna just take this off screen, and we're gonna flip this back to presentation mode. We're just going to copy these two commands and paste them in here. So we're going to install the Cordova plugin, and then we're going to also install the Ionic native plugin from npm. And the next thing we're going to do is head into our app.module. Like with all Ionic native, all the plugins we use on Ionic native, you can see here that we will need to import these the provider, and for this one it's called the Fingerprint AIO. We're going to make sure to import that, and you can see here this auto imported. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to head to our home page. So we're just going to clean this out a bit and say welcome to the home page, something like that. Welcome. And we're also going to create another page which will represent our lock screen. So we are going to want to show a lock screen when the app is in the background, and we'll present that in a modal. So we'll create the base component right here. We'll call it something like lock screen. Sure. And we'll just go and rename these real quick. All right, and then obviously because we did copy and paste, we just need to make some changes here. All right, so we have our lock screen page, and let's just add something here to have it look a little bit different. So we'll say something like lock screen page app locked. And so this is all we're going to do for wiring up the pages. So the next thing we're going to do is we want to implement a service which will listen for those events to tell us that the app is in the background, and we'll need to show a splash screen and present the fingerprint authentication to the user. So I'm going to bring that class in, and then we're going to go through it step by step. All right, so if we look here, we now have this services folder, and in the services folder we have a lock service. So what is this lock service? Well, this is the service that we're going to call to listen to events and react to the events that we're interested in. So specifically, pause and resume. And I'll explain all this in just a second. So this is a provider, which means we are decorating it with the injectable decorator. We're going to go down here, and you'll notice that we have an init function, which we haven't called yet, but we will. Our constructor is just taking the platform, a splash screen, a modal controller, and the Fingerprint AIO provider. So we're going to use the platform to, the platform class signals to us that our Cordova plugins are ready to be used. We're going to use the splash screen provider in order to let us know that in order to show or hide a splash screen. The modal controller will be used to show the lock screen and hide the lock screen, and the Fingerprint AIO provider is going to be used to present the fingerprint security to the user. So in this init function, we only want this code initialized once. So we have two flags over here. We have the initialized flag, and we have the isLocked flag. So the initialized flag is going to be used to tell us that, hey, we've already initialized our logic for the service. We don't need to do it again. And isLocked is a simple Boolean which tells us that our screen is currently in lock mode or not. And the reason for this, as you'll see below, is so that we don't present the lock screen multiple times, because a user could continue putting their app in the background, resuming it, putting the app in the background, resuming it, and we don't want to keep showing the lock screen modal. So if we go down here, if we've initialized this logic, simply return. Otherwise, we're going to create a lock screen using the modal controller, and we are importing our lock screen page. Once our Cordova plugins are ready, we are subscribing to two events, the pause event and the resume event. Now, these events are provided from us by Cordova, and the platform class wraps these for us and makes them observables, and that's why we subscribe to these events. We are not doing much with these subscriptions. It's just a good practice to have them if you did want to unsubscribe, but for this example, we're not going to unsubscribe. We're just showing that we are returning a subscription from this observable. So what happens is, if the app is paused, we want to right away show the splash screen. And showing the splash screen ensures that the last screenshot that iOS will take, or that the OS will take, is of that splash screen. So even if I'm entering a new password or my credit card information, that won't be saved on local storage. That will, the splash screen is the last thing that'll be saved. The next thing you'll see here is we have this resume event, and this is the flag that I had mentioned above a little earlier. So what we're saying is, hey, if I'm already presenting this lock screen, I don't need to do anything. I just want to hide the splash screen. Now, if I'm not showing this lock screen, we're going to flip the flag. We're going to present the modal, and then we're going to show the fingerprint authentication. So this fingerprint authentication code is coming right from Ionic Native. We're not doing anything too fancy here. I've actually kept all the options, so nothing has really changed here. Now the only real change is in the success callback. You'll notice here in the success callback, we are dismissing the lock screen modal. So that modal that shows up, to tell the user that the app is locked, goes away, and we reset this flag so that the next time when the app goes to the background, we'll go and show the modal again. So this is the lock screen service, and because this is an injectable, we'll need to go and add it to our list of providers in our app.module. So we can do that here. And finally, you'll notice that we did have an init function. So we'll need to call this init function. And we can do that once Ionic and Cordova have signaled that we are ready to use all of our plugins. So over here, we'll do something like Lockscreen of type Lockscreen. Lock service of type lock service. And we will say lock service.init. And if we go back here, you'll notice that this is no longer in gray because we're calling it. And that's all there is to it. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to pause this video, get this running on the simulator, and we're going to see exactly what happens. Alright, so as you can see, we have the application running on my actual device. There were some issues with the events firing on simulator, so I just put it on the physical device and everything is working out really well. So we're going to open up this app, and you can see we are presented with the welcome screen. When we suspend this and try and open it up again, you'll see that we have the lock screen and the fingerprint authentication dialog as soon as we authenticate. So I just put my finger on the fingerprint scanner. It authenticated me and it took me back to the welcome screen, and we can keep doing this time and time again and we'll be good to go. So you can see it was very easy for us to set up a lock screen as well as fingerprint authentication. There's a lot more that we can do with this, but I will leave that as an exercise for you, to add the fallback mechanisms. So for example, if we were to go and let's just kill this app, you can see here, if we were to open up the app and get the lock screen, if we end up canceling, we're sort of stuck on this page. There's fallback mechanisms where you can have the user enter their PIN. We could implement something in the app logic itself. There's tons that we can do, but I will leave that as an exercise. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions at all, please leave a comment below and I will get back to you, and I'll see you next time.